All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Glory and Death by J.D. Robb.
I'm excited.
This one was suggested by a listener.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
And so it'll be fun to kind of dig into this and see what makes this story tick.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course, this is featuring our favorite New York City homicide lieutenant, Eve Dallas.
Lieutenant Eve Dallas.
In the future. With all the cool gadgets.
All the fun stuff.
And the flying cars and everything.
Yeah.
So before we jump in too far, can you give us just like a super high-level overview of Glory and Death?
Yeah, sure. So Glory and Death is one of the books in the In Death series by Nora Roberts, writing under the pseudonym J.D. Robb.
Okay.
And this one focuses on Lieutenant Eve Dallas as she investigates the murder of a very prominent prosecutor named Cicely Towers.
Okay.
So it's got all the kind of hallmarks of a great crime thriller, you know, a really compelling protagonist, a complex web of suspects, a lot of twists and turns. And I think one of the things that makes this book so interesting is the way that Robb blends these futuristic elements with really timeless themes of power, ambition, and justice.
And I think that's one of the reasons that this series has continued to resonate with readers for so long.
Yeah.
Because even though the technology is futuristic, the themes that she's dealing with are things that we grapple with in our own lives.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this murder, this prominent prosecutor.
Right.
And I think what was interesting about how the book starts is the fact that she's found dead in a very unusual location for a person of her stature.
Yes, definitely.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what is it about the crime scene that's so intriguing right off the bat?
So Cicely Towers is found dead in this really seedy, kind of rundown part of town, which seems completely at odds with her, you know, her wealthy lifestyle, her powerful position.
It's the opposite of where you'd expect to find her.
Exactly. And so immediately that kind of raises all these questions, like, what was she doing there? Who would want her dead in such a public and potentially dangerous location?
Right. And it's almost like the killer is trying to make a statement by putting her in that environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very deliberate juxtaposition of her world of privilege with this gritty underbelly of the city.
And even the murder weapon is kind of unusual.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so she's killed with a stunner, but it's disguised as a lipstick case.
Oh, wow.
So it's this very elegant, very feminine, but also very deadly weapon.
Very deceptive.
Very deceptive, exactly. And I think it speaks to the killer's, you know, kind of meticulous nature, their understanding of Towers' world and their desire to maintain a certain level of control.
It's not a random act of violence.
No, not at all. This is very carefully orchestrated.
Very planned.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got this unusual crime scene. We've got this strange murder weapon.
Right.
And of course, Eve Dallas is on the case.
Of course.
So she starts digging into Cicely Towers' life, and she uncovers this web of potential suspects.
A lot of suspects.
A lot of suspects.
Yeah.
And each one of them has their own secrets and their own motives.
Exactly, and they're all connected to Towers in different ways.
Okay, so let's talk about some of these suspects.
Okay.
Who is at the top of Eve's list?
So one of the first people that Eve looks at is George Hammett, who was Towers' lover and business partner.
Okay.
So obviously he has a close connection to her, and there's potential for, you know, maybe a power struggle within their firm or even jealousy. But his grief over her death seems very genuine.
Right.
So it makes you wonder, is he really capable of this, or are we misreading his emotions?
It's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell. Yeah.
And then there's Marco Angelini.
Yes, Towers' ex-husband.
Now, this guy from the beginning just struck me as ambitious.
Oh, yeah.
Ruthless. And we find out that he's facing some financial ruin.
Right, some big financial troubles.
So could that be a motive?
It definitely could be. You know, he's someone who understands power and isn't afraid to use it to his advantage.
So it wouldn't be a stretch to imagine that he might resort to something drastic to solve his financial problems.
Right.
But at the same time, he's very concerned with appearances.
Right.
So would he risk his reputation by committing such a brazen act?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And then we have Randall Slade.
Yes. The fiancé of Towers' daughter, Marina.
So he's a little bit younger.
A little bit younger.
And seems to be kind of charming on the surface.
Yeah. Charming, but also deeply in debt.
Yes.
He's got a gambling problem.
A serious gambling problem.
Yes.
So he represents a different kind of ambition.
Right. He's more desperate.
Yeah.
He's trying to secure his future with Marina, and maybe he saw Towers as an obstacle to that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting about all three of these suspects is that they all represent different facets of ambition.
Yes. Different ways that ambition can manifest.
And different ways that it can lead people to make bad choices.
Absolutely.
But of course, we can't talk about the suspects in this book without talking about Roarke, right, Eve's husband.
And he's a fascinating character because he's got this mysterious past.
Very mysterious.
And he's incredibly wealthy. And he's not afraid to kind of operate outside the law sometimes.
He bends the rules.
He bends the rules.
Yeah.
And in this book, he's connected to Cicely Towers in a way that makes him a person of interest.
Yeah, both in the past and in the present.
So how does Roarke's presence impact the investigation?
Well, it adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Definitely.
Because on the one hand, he's a valuable asset to Eve.
He's got resources?
He has resources. He has connections. He can get information that she can't.
Right.
But at the same time, his involvement also creates a conflict of interest.
Right.
You know, she has to constantly question his motives.
Right.
Wonder if he's being completely truthful with her.
Yeah.
And that puts a strain on their relationship.
So it's this constant push and pull
Exactly.
between their personal connection and the demands of the investigation.
Right. And it's one of the things that makes their relationship so compelling.
Okay, so we've got this intricate web of suspects, and we've got Roarke kind of lurking in the background.
Yeah.
And as Eve is investigating, she stumbles across this seemingly insignificant detail.
Oh, yeah.
A missing umbrella.
A missing umbrella.
Now, why would something like that catch Eve's attention?
Because Eve knows that Cicely Towers was a very meticulous woman.
Okay.
So the fact that she would leave her apartment on a rainy night without her umbrella seems off.
Okay.
It suggests that maybe something happened very quickly, or that maybe she was with someone who she didn't want to be seen with. So it's a tiny detail, but it's a crack in the facade, and Eve is going to exploit that.
She's going to follow that breadcrumb.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of breadcrumbs, there's another location that becomes important in the investigation.
Yes.
The Five Moons Club.
The Five Moons Club.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about this place and why it's significant?
Yeah, so the Five Moons Club is this kind of seedy establishment in a rough part of town. And it's a place where people from all different walks of life come together.
Right.
You know, you've got the wealthy elite, you've got criminals, you've got everyone in between.
It's like a melting pot in New York City.
Yeah, and it's a place where secrets are traded and deals are made.
Okay.
So Eve sees this as an opportunity to get a glimpse into the underbelly of Towers' world.
Okay.
To see who she might have been connected to that she wouldn't want anyone to know about.
So it's like a window into a hidden world.
Exactly.
A world that maybe holds the key to solving this case.
Maybe. And it really kind of embodies those themes of power and ambition and the dark underbelly of society that we see throughout the book.
It's like a microcosm of everything that's going on in the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about, because it's so central to this world that J.D. Robb has created, is this device called the link. For those who haven't read the book, can you just give us like a quick explanation of what the link is and how it functions in this futuristic society?
Sure. So the link is basically like this all-in-one device that everyone has.
Okay.
It's like a combination of a smartphone, a computer, and even like a social media platform.
Oh, wow.
All rolled into one. So people use it for everything, you know?
Yeah.
Communication, entertainment, shopping, banking, even controlling things in their homes.
So it's like an extension of their lives.
Exactly. It's like a lifeline.
And I imagine it plays a pretty significant role in Eve's investigation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it creates this massive digital footprint that Eve can tap into.
Oh, wow.
She can track people's movements, their communications, their financial transactions.
It's like a gold mine of information.
It is.
But it also makes you think about the implications for privacy in that world.
It's definitely, you know, it's like this double-edged sword.
Right.
It's incredibly convenient, but it also means that everyone is constantly being monitored.
It's like Big Brother on steroids.
Kind of, yeah. And I think Robb is really using the link to comment on our own relationship with technology. You know, how much we rely on our devices and how much information we're willing to share.
It's like she's holding up a mirror to our own society and asking us to think about where we're headed.
Yeah. Are we sacrificing our privacy for the sake of convenience?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
So Eve is using the link to follow these digital trails, trying to connect the dots between the suspects.
Right.
And then, bam, another murder.
Another murder.
This time it's Yvonne Metcalf.
An actress?
An actress and Roarke's ex-lover.
Former lover.
Former lover, yes.
Yeah.
So how does this new murder complicate the investigation?
Well, it expands the scope of the case.
Okay.
Because now it's not just about people in Towers' immediate circle.
Yeah.
It's also about people from Roarke's past.
It's like the killer's trying to send a message.
Yeah, either to Roarke or to Eve, or maybe both.
And the media goes crazy, of course.
Right. Yeah.
Because now you've got this high-profile murder connected to a wealthy and mysterious figure like Roarke.
Right. It's a recipe for a media frenzy.
And then, just when you think things can't get any more intense,
I know.
another murder.
Louise Kursky.
Louise Kursky,
Yeah.
an employee at Channel 75.
Yeah. And this time it happens in broad daylight in a public park.
It's like the killer's getting bolder,
They are.
more reckless,
And they don't seem to care about getting caught.
almost like they want to be
I mean,
caught,
like they're taunting Eve.
challenging her.
Yeah.
So what do you think is driving the killer at this point?
I think it's a combination of things.
Okay.
I think there's definitely a sense of power that they're getting from these murders, the attention they're receiving, the fear they're instilling.
And they're controlling the narrative.
Yes. They're using the media to shape the story.
It's like a game to them.
Yeah, a very twisted game.
And Eve is caught in the middle.
Right. Trying to make sense of it all.
And of course, she's still dealing with Roarke
Always.
and his potential involvement.
Yeah.
So how is this affecting her?
Well, it's definitely putting a strain on their relationship.
Yeah.
Because she can't fully trust him.
Right.
But she also needs his help.
He's got the resources.
He does.
So she's walking this tightrope between her personal feelings and her duty as a cop.
Exactly. And it's one of the most interesting aspects of the book.
Because it really explores the complexities of their relationship
Yeah.
and how love and trust can be tested in extreme situations.
Absolutely.
So amidst all this chaos, a new piece of evidence emerges.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about this.
Someone comes forward,
Okay.
claims to have seen the killer leaving the park after Kursky's murder. Here's the thing.
What's that?
The witness is an albino addict,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and he remembers one very specific detail.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What is it?
The killer was getting into a car with a purple umbrella.
A purple umbrella. Okay.
Now, why would that detail be so important?
Well, it might seem random at first,
Yeah.
but remember that missing umbrella from Tower's apartment?
Oh, right.
It's starting to look like a pattern, a connection between the murders that goes beyond just Roarke.
So it's not just a coincidence.
No, Eve doesn't believe in coincidences.
And this is where her brilliance as a detective really shines through.
Absolutely.
She's able to take these seemingly unrelated details
Yeah.
and piece them together to form a bigger picture.
And she starts to zero in on a new suspect.
Yes, and it's someone we've met before.
Who is it?
C.J. Morse, the reporter.
Oh, the ambitious reporter.
The one who's always sniffing around,
Yeah.
trying to get the scoop.
Okay, so what makes Eve suspect him?
It's kind of like he's almost too invested in the case, you know?
Yeah, like he's not just observing it, he's trying to be a part of it.
Right, and remember all that link access we were talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out that Morse has been using his link to hack into police databases.
Oh, wow.
He's been accessing restricted files.
So he's not just ambitious, he's also pretty tech-savvy.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely a few steps ahead of the game.
And I bet he's using that information to his advantage.
Absolutely. He's manipulating the media. He's planting false leads. He's basically trying to control the entire narrative.
It's like he's playing a very dangerous game.
But Eve, she's not buying it.
No, she sees right through him.
She knows he's up to something, and she comes up with this plan to expose him.
Okay, I'm all ears. What does she do?
She decides to use herself as bait.
Oh, wow. That's risky.
It is, but it's also brilliant. Because she knows that Morse is obsessed with the case.
Right.
And he's always trying to be one step ahead.
So by putting herself in danger, she's also giving him the opportunity to make a mistake.
Exactly. She's luring him into a trap.
And does it work?
It does, but not without some serious drama.
Oh, I bet. Tell me everything.
So the climax of the book takes place in Central Park at night,
Okay.
setting the scene.
It's raining, it's dark, it's intense.
Oh, I can imagine.
And Morse, he shows up with a gun.
Oh, no.
He takes Nadine first hostage.
Eve's friend, the reporter.
Yeah.
Why does he do that?
I think it's a combination of desperation and a need for control.
He's lost control of the narrative. He's been exposed.
So he's lashing out.
Yeah, and in that moment, he's dangerous.
Very dangerous.
But just when things are looking really bad for Eve, guess who shows up?
Roarke.
Roarke. He comes out of nowhere.
Of course he does.
He disarms Morse and saves the day.
Like a knight in shining armor.
It's pretty epic, but it also kind of makes you question his motives.
Yeah, is he really just trying to protect Eve, or does he have his own agenda?
It's always hard to tell with Roarke.
But either way, he saves Eve's life.
He does, and Morse is finally arrested.
So justice is served?
Well, not so fast.
Oh, there's a twist, isn't there?
There's always a twist with J.D. Robb.
Okay, hit me with it.
So Out of the blue, Marco Angelini,
Cower's ex-husband?
yes, he confesses to the murders.
What? Why would he do that?
He claims that he acted alone to protect his son.
So is he telling the truth?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great way to end the book because it leaves you wondering.
It makes you doubt everything you thought you knew.
And it really emphasizes the complexities of human motivation.
It's not always black and white.
No, sometimes the lines are very blurry.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into glory and death, I think what struck me the most was how relevant the themes of the book are to our own lives.
Absolutely.
Even though it's set in the future.
The issues of ambition power, the influence of the media.
They're all things that we're dealing with right now.
And J.D. Robb does a fantastic job of exploring those themes in a way that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
So what was your biggest takeaway from this book?
I think, for me, it was the reminder that even in a world with advanced technology, human emotions are still the driving force behind so much of what we do.
Yeah, and that those emotions can lead us to do both great and terrible things.
Absolutely. Glory and Death is a story about the dark side of human nature and the choices we make when faced with temptation and desire.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah, I agree.
So, to all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Glory and Death. We had a blast discussing this book with you, and we hope you enjoyed it too. If you haven't read it yet, we highly recommend checking it out. And if you have, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the ending. Did you believe Angelini's confession? Let us know in the comments. And be sure to join us next time for another deep dive into a new book